Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Ola Dantis. Thanks for being on the show, Ola.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Glad to be here.
He's the founder, CEO at Dwellynn.com, a multifamily investment syndicating firm. He's successfully sourced deals over $40 million by working closely with sellers and other apartment syndicators across the country. He continues to exceed investor returns and build upon his success in the multifamily investing space. Thanks for being on the show, Ola, and give the listeners a little more about your background and why you're in this business we call real estate syndication.
Yeah, thank you so much, Whitney. So, really funny story. I've been doing this for, quite some time now, but how I get started was really funny. So I like to talk about it. A friend of mine from the UK, where I've lived, basically called me one day and said, hey, can you meet me in Dubai for a meeting, right? For a quick mastermind. So I was like, okay. And I did what, every smart and wise man does. I asked my wife. I said, hey, a friend of mine just called me and he's like, can I jump on the plane to Dubai to meet him? And she was like, absolutely not. Why would you do that? Why didn't you guys just FaceTime or Skype? Why go all the way there? And, long story short, I was on a plane to Dubai to meet my friend. And we spent about 3-4 days, predominantly in a hotel room, kind of going back and forth with his business. His business was obviously real estate, in London. And it was obviously in Dubai meeting some investors. So during our time together, I realized that, oh my goodness, like he's doing really well. He's making, quite a good chunk of money. And I was like, I could be doing this in the United States. So I learned a ton. I was really excited. I jumped back on the plane, got back to the United States and started doing some reading, some researching, obviously found out bigger pockets. And then from the podcast, everybody kept talking about a book, that they read. And it was the same book. It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I was like, I got to buy this book, right? So I bought the book, read the book, and, I'll just stop there. As you say, the rest is history. But I think the reason I brought this story up is as people start their journey or before they start their journey, they have to understand there should be a level of risk that you're willing to take in life to get to where you're supposed to be, right? Because rewinding back, I could have said, no, I don't really want to come and meet you in Dubai. I can just FaceTime you or whatever. And I never go for that meeting. And then I would have never seen, this really amazing snowball effect that has happened in my own life. So I think for folks listening to this, thinking of starting real estate, there is a level of uncomfortability that you're okay with, right? You can just jump on the plane, go somewhere. You have to be that way. That's the whole point of, real estate investing.
That's so interesting too. And you didn't give us all the details there. I know you said one important thing was that you asked your wife, right? But she said no. So, how did that, I guess, how did you get her on board? I know there's listeners that are in those same shoes, right? And I can speak from that. Just, thankfully my spouse is on board and very supportive, and it's been key, because obviously you're putting in lots of hours and it affects the whole family. But, how did that play out?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So the other piece I didn't mention was I prayed about it. I prayed about it, and then I, go back with my wife and say, hey, listen, what if I go right to this trip and I learn something amazing, right? And I come back with new knowledge, right? Because what happens is when we get out of uni, college, as you call it in the United States, is we stop learning, right? I mean, yeah, you pick up a book here and there, but our brain tries to tell us we know everything. So then we stop to learn, we stop to read, we stop to seek out new information. So I told my wife, like, hey, I could go to this trip, learn something new. Yes, it's an investment. I paid for the ticket, by the way, myself. And then if I come back, we could do something different with this and could take us to actually go back when I did get back, I learned about multifamily, and I told my wife, our current situation today is we pay for a monthly rent in a fancy apartment building. Think about this for a second. What if we bought an apartment building, or more realistically, a smaller size apartment building, and somebody pays us rent every month, right? Imagine that. So we don't pay anything. We live in the house maybe free or almost completely free. Somebody actually pays us money to use our space. And she's like, I like that. Well, that came from the Dubai trip. So it's really like connecting the initial vision, you know, in our marriage. Essentially, you have to have a vision for your marriage, and where is this marriage going into? You know, where is this family going into? What are our values? What are our vision? So I think connecting, you know, the initial risk, which was me traveling away to learn about this new thing, and then when you get back to actually show the strategy, connect the tactics, and make your idea, in this case, real estate investing, make it practical, not only to yourself, but to your wife, and most importantly, to your family.
So why don't you elaborate on just get how you got started and how you pushed through all those doubting fears and, you know, all that stuff that was really holding you back. But now, you know, now you took that risk and how you were okay with taking that risk. You talked about it a little bit, but let's elaborate on, you made a decision, you know, what was your mindset? How did you get that straight? And, you know, help the listener to work through those at the same time right now.
I think that's an amazing question, right? That is such a good question. So there are a variety of ways we can mitigate risks in our lives. One, you know, the really obvious one is that you just basically learn so much about this, you know, topic that you're trying to get into. In this case, it's real estate investing. So I learned a lot, right? I knew a lot. So I got comfortable in terms of, you know, what I'm trying to get myself into. So that was the very, very first thing I did. You know, I read all the books, I listened to all the podcasts I could. I, you know, spoke to people that I heard on podcasts, reached out. You know, one of those people is Joe Fellas, an amazing guy. You know, then he became my coach. So I read, I got a coach, I spoke to different people. But I think the one thing that helps to, you know, really reduce, I never want to say eliminate the fear, because, you know, that's an ongoing thing realistically, is to write down your vision and write down your goals, right? When you put it down on paper, I literally have a whiteboard here in my office. You write your goals down. Why are you doing what you're doing? Right? And what are you doing? In this case, what real estate strategy are you looking to deploy capital in, right? What are your timelines, right? Just to give you a guide, because if you've been in real estate for 5 years and you haven't bought a property, you haven't flipped a deal, you haven't been in an apartment syndication on the passive side, then there's something wrong. Why? Because the average investor would have bought a property before, well, an active, obviously, investor would have bought a property before 5 years. So you need those things. Now, when you read about about the strategies you're trying to get to, you get a coach that is active in that space, right? Write your goals down. Make sure that you tag a timeline to it, so you know when you're on or off track, and then just do it, right? So for me personally, when I got back and I, wrote my goals down, I basically followed that step. I bought a property within 6 months, right? So I looked at, the MLS, we're looking at duplexes, triplexes, quads, and we're, Maryland. So I really want to bring out something as well for folks listening to us, Whitney. I was living in kind of in an apartment building, but in the suburbs, right? So when I started looking at multifamily, I could not find anything close to me. So we had to leave the comfort of our fancy apartment where we could always get parking. We could just drive down to the grocery store to move into the city where we could never find parking. You have to drive around the block 2-3 times, to get this building that we bought, our first building. So, and the reason I'm bringing this up is when you're, working towards your goal, things are not going to be comfortable. They're not going to be what you're used to. There's going to be some certain level of change and even uncertainty, right? But you have to be ready for that. And that means you're actually pushing yourself towards the life that you should be living. So we bought this first building. We moved into it, we rehabbed it, we did the bra strategy, put out some cash. And then obviously we kind of been running that capital, since then.
Technology is creating opportunities in the commercial real estate industry at an increasingly rapid pace. Technology-fueled innovations are enabling those forward-thinking firms to reduce back-office costs and risk, raise equity faster, and increase asset performance so that they can focus more time on activities that drive revenue. Today, IMS is the most widely adopted investor management software for commercial real estate firms. Visit us at investormanagementservices.com.
I really like that strategy, and I contemplated myself about doing the same thing, and we did a similar thing. But anyway, now talk us through that a little bit, just some of the struggles, but how you stay motivated, because I know that's not easy. It's not easy to make that change and get uncomfortable, but I really see that you had you had the end in mind, right? You could see, many years down the road, you knew this was going to be worth making this hard decision now. And how did you stay motivated through that? How did you all, you and your wife both stay on board about that?
Oh man. I don't know. That is such an amazing question, right? Because every person that jumps into a new idea, or in this case, real estate investing, there is just this blind spot that I believe we all have, right? And that blind spot is, everything is going to go great. Like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to jump in, get my first deal. Nobody's going to sue me. Everybody's going to love me. And then you start doing it, and you're like, oh my goodness, people want to actually sue me. My tenants might sue me. Other investors might not like me because we made money together. Like, there's all these other things, both of which I've said are negative, but then there are also positives, right? I'm actually getting income, right? I have an asset. A lot of people don't have that. You have people who lived for 30 years, never own a home. So how do I stay motivated? There's something I like to call, kind of the gratitude perspective, right? That I coined that term, gratitude perspective. What does that mean? You zoom out of your life and you look at your life and say, what can I be grateful about, right? What can I be grateful about in all of this situation? I don't care. It could be your coffee from McDonald's that morning and it tasted amazing. Be grateful about that, right? It could be the deal that you got because so much on the negativity of your current circumstances, right? So when you zoom out, you have this helicopter view of your life that fuels your motivation constantly, because you are going to be disappointed. You are going to face those tough days that you're going to question yourself. Like, why am I doing this? The goals I wrote down is on my board. That's why I'm doing it. Right? But that's the second thing I was going to talk about, right? Those goals that you wrote down is also going to fuel your motivation to keep you going, to just keep you through those tough, sometimes dark days, actually, because entrepreneurship can be lonely, right? So you have to make sure that you're constantly getting fueled up through the two things I've mentioned, constantly, because if you don't have gratitude, you quickly get into a space that you don't want to be. If you don't remember the goals that you wrote down, you can get, I don't want to do this again. There's a reason why a lot of people don't actually do their deals. Like when I go to meetups and people have been going there for years, they've never done a deal. They're there terrible people. There are just reasons why. So you have to make sure you don't fall in that trap, right? And last thing I do is I pray, right? The matter be for everybody, but I pray, right? So those are what keeps me going, and that's frankly what has contributed largely to my relative success.
Nice. Ola, what's been the hardest part of the syndication process for you?
Oh man, that is such a good question too. So, you jump in this game, you pick up the phone, you go through the process of, reaching out to brokers. Obviously, you need to find deal, and then you need to find capital, right? So I'm like, well, I'll go with the deal, right? So you call all the brokers and say, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. I want, I'm looking at this particular market. I've seen that you're pretty active. I mean, had a whole script laid out, right? But what I didn't know is I had to jump through a few hoops. Well, one, the broker has to pick up your call, right? But they're really busy people. They're always out on the road for the most part, right? So then getting them to pick up your call and then getting them to call you back and then making sure that you as a syndicator follow up, right? What is most important is not even making the initial call, is the follow up. That's how you build relationship over time with brokers, right? So for me, I struggled with that, right? I couldn't get brokers to listen to me. I had meetings, with a few brokers, and they probably think, "Oh, you look relatively young, like you haven't done 5,000 units like Grant Cardone. Like, I'd rather give this deal to this guy that is proven." So the way I overcame that was I started to build processes and systems to help me go directly to the sellers. Right. So I jumped above, the brokers, and I just reached out to sellers. Right. And I just basically called sellers and say, hey, I give them the script and say, I want to come take a look at your building. So for me in the beginning, it was very, very, very difficult to get brokers to listen to me. And now they're calling me all the time.
So give us a process or a system, maybe just one thing that you've learned, you put in place to start finding those deals or talking to sellers directly.
Great question. So what we do now is a mixture of, we have a mailing list that, we basically target, owners that are basically held an asset for maybe 30 years, right? So we're anticipating that maybe they're towards the retirement, or maybe they're just tired and they're looking to cash out. Some of them do have, I spoke to an owner that, wants to sell us a 505 portfolio over 7 properties. And he's had that for more than 25 years. So he's getting done. He's thinking of just retiring to Florida, and he wants to offload that to us. So that's one way, that we basically use. We use a mailing list. We target those guys, and we send a mail out to them. And then obviously when they call in, we continue the conversation. Another way is through access to public records. So we scrub the internet for data, and then we try as much as we can to get telephone numbers for sellers and just reach out to them directly.
Nice. What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Oh man, that I was not expecting. I think for me is persistency, right? You got to understand that, like for example, when I call sellers and they tell me, I don't want to sell, or don't call me again, where'd you get this number, or whatever, you start to personalize the world, right? I don't. They don't hate me. They don't know me. They're just, maybe I called them at the wrong time, or for whatever reason, they didn't want to talk to me. So I don't let that rejection, make me all dejected. Like, I'm so unlucky. No, I don't. I just keep going. It's just to the next number, onto the next person, onto the next seller. And then with that process of kind of elimination, I know I'm going to get through to that one person. And we do, get to that one person that's like, what, I've been thinking of selling my property this year. Yeah, I will send you our P&L. I'll send you the T12. I'll send you the rent roll. And it's just, it's almost like magic. So for me, it's just that constant persistence, right? Day in and day out.
What's a way that you've recently improved your business that we could all apply to ours?
Whew. Wow. Okay. So I think for me, it's not so much the business, it's more of me, but of course it translates to the business, right? This is a big one. When you get into this game, there is just so many ways to make money in real estate. There's just so many strategies out there. So sometimes you get this shiny object syndrome, right? Even though I felt like I had this spirit of discernment and I just wanted to focus on multifamily, I met a partner and he's like, we can flip houses, we can do this and do that. So then you kind of get a little bit derailed, right? And realistically, you lose time because your focus is now been shifted to something else, right? Of course, your brain is telling you, oh, you're balancing both balls in the head, but you're not, because, I was going to, my projects last year almost every day, trying to get those projects going, but then my syndication side of my business was suffering. So now what we're doing is we're very, very narrow focused. We have an org chart. We have basically something called OKRs, objective and key results, what we go after every day. And those basically dictate what we do every day with the intention of a predictive result in our business. So that narrow focus helps us with our outcomes, essentially. So we're very, 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 very focused, and that's what we've changed.
What are you excited about right now in your business?
Oh man, I'm just so excited with some of the headwaves we made so far this year. We've, like I said, sourced about 40 million, in deals already, and we just keep getting calls. We keep speaking to sellers. We keep talking to other partners, capital partners. We're working with a group out of Israel right now. So I'm just so thankful, and just so thankful to God and what we're doing here. It's just so much going on. I'm just thankful.
Is there a need in your business right now that you would like to let the listeners know about?
I think for our business, we're pretty robust from A to Z, for the most part. However, we are constantly looking for folks who are, looking to learn about the business, looking to, maybe they're, thinking twice about the stock market and thinking of other options for them, and they want to learn more about what the syndication business actually really means, how they can get value from that. And obviously we're always looking to add value to our clients. So if you're out there and you just kind of want to learn more about what this thing is, let us know.
And tell the listeners how they can learn more about you and about your podcast as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So Dwellynn is a pretty an interesting brand. That's what we're trying to build. As you can tell from the name, it sounds like a dwelling. So we've got the podcast arm, we've got the investing arm, and then we've kind of got the it's a really focused market, right? We're looking at a specific segment of the population as well. So you can go on investwithola.com. That link would take you directly to our platform. So it's invest with Ola. So invest and then with OLA.com. And also when you get to our site, you can take a look at our podcast as well. Feel free to check that out. And also feel free to just reach out. Just say, hey, heard on you on Whitney's podcast. I want to chat. I'm always willing to talk to folks. Just give them a listening ear, not so much to advise, but just to hear them out. So if you're out there, you can hear my voice and you want to reach out, I'll be glad to have a conversation with you.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ola. I really appreciate you just helping us think about how you got started and your mindset and why that's so important. I hope the listeners will reach out to you, and I hope they will also go to LifeBridge Capital and connect with me, but also our Facebook group, where you can see future guests and you can leave questions and that you want me to ask on the show, and connect with other people in the business, and we can grow our businesses together. And we will talk to each of you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.